Hi, this is Minnie May. Um, it's been a while. I thought tonight I'm going to address. Um, it's actually part of Step 7 in according to the AA practice. As you're aware, I'm in rehab, and this is about week 7 um, for me. I've been here 8 weeks, and so this is week 9, but for the level that I'm at, it's only like week 5 or 6. Yeah. Anyway, the weeks are really fast and busy, so I actually haven't kept my word on making, you know, keeping an update every week. Um, I can't say I'm sorry for that because I just didn't have a chance to do that. However, today, what I wanted to talk about is dealing with, once you're in a sober frame of mind, with acknowledging that you have character defects, and I don't particularly like the word. However, that's how it is. There are certain characteristics that you have to deal with in order to address why you feel resentment, anger, um, sometimes hatred. Um, what's driving those feelings. Anyway, so I did a little bit of research, and because like I said, I don't like the word character defect, and I think I don't have any, but that's not correct. So I found a blog called Don't Drink and Don't Die by Lydia, and she's got a list of about 23 character defects, right? So what I thought I'll do is I'll go through them one by one, just very briefly, and then I'll focus on what I'm working on at the moment, and maybe you can gain some insight. And as I'm talking, I might, um, you know, expand on what I believe that means for me and what it might mean in the future. Yeah. Anyway, so all of these aren't character defects, but they, for her, she sees that what you do is, when you do step work, is you address where you're at, your feelings, etc. And you use any one of these that you recognize. And recognizing it in the first place for me is saying, yes, I've got it and I can address it. So, um, for instance, I'll give you the list, and you could always go and look at the blog yourself. It's very interesting. Um, Anger, worry, arrogance, close mindedness, dependency, pessimism, dishonesty, controlling behavior, fear, self absorption, gossiping, lack of humility or being self centered. They're separate, but they can be together. Impatience, intolerance, and judgmental, when you make an inventory of everything that happens around you, and it creates a problem for you because other people don't like that behavior, for example. Jealousy and envy, perfectionism, prejudice, self-justification, as in when everything you do, you justify by saying, I believe this is correct, etc. Resentment, rigidity, and self-pity. Anyway, so I had the fine task of deciding which one of those I want to address, and I chose resentment first, because resentment for me is something that eats away at you for years, or it can, never let it go, for example. And because I found my spiritual feet again, in a way that I'm starting to build a relationship with God again, and I feel that if you're forgiven for your sin, or what you have confessed is your sin, then you have to forgive others. So it's sort of, that's, you know, and when you forgive somebody, the resentment goes away. That's my experience. Anyway, so what I then did was, like I just said, I didn't like the idea that I have any defects. But I know I experience resentment on occasions. And then I started doing some philosophical work on my past, what I found useful to study in the past. And I looked at The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I hope I pronounce his name right. It's a book. It's called Toltec Philosophy. I might be wrong for that last word, but anyway, it's 4 agreements. The first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. That sounds like a good thing. And don't take anything personal is number 2. And don't make assumptions, and always do your best. Now, my understanding is that when you become resentful over something, one, you've either agreed to do something against your will, for example, and it doesn't make you feel good to do that, so you feel used. That would be, how I understand it. But the be impeccable with your word is actually quite interesting, because Rios says that being impeccable is to be without sin. Now, we all know what that means. There's no one is without sin. However, impeccable actually means, according to him, is not to do, without sin is anything you feel or believe or say against yourself. That is a sin. So if you say something that you don't feel comfortable with, that's against your beliefs and against your values, or you do something that's against you, then you're not being impeccable. So you're going to be left with bad feelings, feel resentful, even resent your own behavior. That's how I understand it. So if you judge or blame others, or experience judgment against yourself, self-judgment, then you're sinning against yourself. So you'd want to try not to do that. And in my opinion, it would be something that if I agree to do something, then I say yes, and then I follow through on it, because by following through on it, I'm being, being myself and being true to my word. And so I wouldn't give my word to something or somebody if I don't want to do it and I have no intention of doing it. However, this sounds all airy-fairy, because in reality sometimes we do things against our will, or we agree to do something and we don't want to do it, or we agree to do something because we want to do it. We're in it. So in that case, it's like, for instance, if you honor your commitments, you meet the requirements, you feel better about yourself, and this helps chip away at all those bad feelings that you've got. So my intention is in the future to try and do that more often, because when you're drinking, I want to make it rhyme and say you're not thinking, and that's correct, you aren't thinking. And it's not just the drinking, it's the fact that you're not sober-minded anymore, and so sometimes act out of just impulsiveness. I think impulsiveness could come on that list as a character defect, because impulsiveness obviously happens while you're drinking. Well, it happens for me that on impulse I will do stuff that I would normally not do or consider doing if I was sober-minded, and that can lead you into problems, that you could have prevented if you stayed sober. Or if you limited your drinking, if that's what you're interested in. But for me, it has led me into a lot of trouble. Um, so, and something else I wanted to talk about is to keep going with that, is not to take anything personally. That's very hard, but I think while it's something that I practice, I try and practice. For example, you can often take offense when people actually, they're not talking about you. In fact, everything that people do, it's good to remember that it's about them. Sometimes when somebody accuses you of something, it's about them. So if you're feeling upset because a person says, you've done that, or this is about you and you must feel like that, well, one, they're making an assumption about you, about how you're feeling, but also they are actually projecting their own feelings. So you have to question yourself, sometimes. So that's why being impulsive is not a good thing, because you're not thinking, you're just acting or doing, or the thought is an impulse also, like that. And then the other thing is not to make assumptions. So the two for me is sort of linked. You don't take it personal and you don't make an ass of yourself. You don't assume anything. So you ask questions. If somebody's, you make sure there's open and honest communication, and ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. And I find that one of the biggest things in relationships and between people, friends, in a group of friends, etc., is assuming that you know what other people are thinking. I'm not quite sure if I ever do that. I might do that when I'm drunk. I try not to do that. So once again, you have to be aware what you're thinking, and be aware of your feelings. Like if something is upsetting you, is to clarify, why you're saying this. Why is this happening? Can you explain to me what brought that on? That kind of thing. That's how I understand it. Otherwise, I'm going to feel resentful and I don't even know that it's about me. It might have nothing to do with me, or it might have everything to do with me. So I get angry and resentful. And then the last one of the 4 agreements is to always do your best. Now, when Rias talks about always doing your best, is not be in it 100%, is to, your best is you want to do it and you're doing it as best you can. And of course, being open and honest, you'd be able to say, I can't fully do this the way I'd like to, but at this stage, this is how I'm going to do it. So you learn to be patient with yourself. Patience, you're in a job that you don't like doing. You're not enjoying it anymore, but you have to still go to work. And if you want to maintain a reasonable sense of not feeling upset with yourself and being able to cope, what you then try and do is go to work, try and enjoy what you're doing, start looking for other work if necessary. But in the meantime, don't go home thinking, oh my God, I wish I didn't do that, because everyone has to work, That's just an example in my understanding of it. So I'm starting with that, Those 4 agreements for me is something I can work with in to deal with resentment. On the other hand, something else that I'm thinking I could start with also is, what's the word for it? I'm looking, self-absorption. Now, I struggle with the term self-absorption now that I'm sober, because all I'm doing at the moment is being self-absorbed, looking at what happened in the past, reflecting on the past, building new ways of living, that kind of thing. So for me, that's how I understand self-absorption. However, self-absorption in as a defect is when everything is centers around you, and it's me kind of thing. And so if something happens, you also think it's about you, so you can see, yes, it could be a defect. I'm still struggling. Anyway, for now, that's about all I've got. um, I'm reading some really interesting stuff on Deepak's work on emotional safety and security and looking after yourself, taking care of yourself. So I'll see how that helps me out in the future. But for now, I believe there's still, life is full of endless possibilities, and we can only continue. And I'm just really glad that I'm sober today, and I'm alive and well, and God loves me, and I'm able to sit here and have the luxury of just chatting. Dig deep. Till next time. Bye.